Hello and welcome back. Bryn and I are back for round two, talking about tips that you can use to improve your mindset as you're going through your healing journey, to help you kind of get rid of some barriers and some limitations and step into what you need to for your own path to get rid of pain. So if you haven't watched the first one, I'll put a link below. I would go back and watch that one first. The first tip is in that episode, and we're going to talk about two more today. So, Bryn, welcome back. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to just jump right into it. Last week we talked about avoiding Google. Digesting too much information can be a little intense and mess with your head a little bit. Just in forums or looking for a diagnosis, something to name your pain. Anyways, it was good. And now we're going to move on to a second tip though. So let's hear it, lady.
So I would say my second tip, when I took a look back into my own pain journey of the things that were most supportive to me, like you said, the first thing was avoiding going down the deep, dark interwebs and looking at all the things that could go wrong. My second tip would be start using a journal. Get yourself a journal stat. So in my diagnosis pain journey, I kept a journal throughout my time. And at first, I think it came from a recommendation from a doctor, which was more clinical: track symptoms. Like, let's try to see if there's any trends to the pain that you're feeling. Because when you first get into physical pain, if there isn't a specific incident, it may be hard to understand where it came from.
Sure.
For me, it literally was overnight. Like one day, at least that's how it felt. One day I woke up and all of a sudden I had this crazy amount of pain and I had no clue what caused it. I'm sure if I looked back and zoomed in, I could have seen some signs along the way. But getting a journal to start tracking symptoms may give you some peace of mind and start to be your own detective and understand clues and things that could make the pain worse or hopefully make the pain better. So tracking symptoms would be great, but the journal is so much more than that. I would say tracking symptoms is only the tip of the iceberg. I would also recommend using it to get all of these emotions out. So when you're in pain, you can feel a lot. You can experience a lot of emotion like sadness, grief, anger, a million other waves that are going to come through on any given day. And using your journal to get all of that out as a way to access your feelings and process things can be so supportive to your overall mental health. So literally just using it as a brain dump. There's no filter, just putting your pen to paper and, like you were talking to your best friend, writing it all out unfiltered. It can be really cathartic and therapeutic.
Yeah, I love the idea of tracking symptoms. That's something that, in a more physical way, I do the same thing when I'm figuring out my own pain spots. So I'll do some foam rolling and then write down which ones I did and then how my pain either changes, if it increases, decreases, if it moves. That stuff is so helpful because you may have a really, wouldn't say obscure, but you could have a very specific pattern that if you're not writing it down, you may have no idea
Totally.
A couple days later, like, what did I do that was so helpful?
Yeah. It's also really helpful, I remember, to give to your doctor when they're like, what's been going on? And you can say, I have 3 months of, or whatever, 3 days, 3 weeks of data of like how I felt when I woke up, what I ate that day. You can go down a pretty deep rabbit hole of the things you track. But I would say keep it simple at first. When you feel pain, ranking it with a number. Things like adding in diet could be super simple. What you ate that day,
Sure.
How you slept, some of like the bigger categories to track.
Nice.
And then outside of tracking your symptoms, using it as an emotional dump, I would say writing down mantras to support you. So a mantra is something that is going to be a simple sentence that is affirming or grounding and actually makes you feel better. It's something that you want to say because it's going to support you in your healing journey. So some examples of that would be, this is temporary. This is what I'm currently experiencing. So rather than using language over and over that's going to reinforce you being in pain and staying stuck in that cycle, starting to identify with a different story. That story being that this is not going to last forever. So this is temporary. This is what I'm currently experiencing. When you say those things, it actually creates space for something different to come along versus I'm in pain all the time. This is never going to end. That doesn't create any space for a different story or a different alternative.
Yeah, I also learned when we were doing TCS that your subconscious, I believe it's your subconscious, does not understand negatives. So if you're writing down, I don't want to be in pain, that doesn't actually mean anything to your brain, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the example they would use is, don't think about a pink elephant. What are you thinking about right now?
Oh, an adorable pink elephant.
Exactly. So what you want to do is to train your brain with things that you do want. So working towards the affirmative, that's why we actually call it an affirmation, because we want them to affirm you and be in the positive. That doesn't mean we're bypassing anything. In fact, that's why I said in the previous tip is to actually dump out all your emotions without a filter. So I want you to feel your journal as your safe space to write it all down. So it's like step one is do the dump. Take it all out, no filter.
Yeah.
Then revisit what you wrote and see where you can start pulling things out and translate it into something positive, like an affirmation. So, for example, if you wrote in your journal how sad and distraught you're feeling, something that's really positive and affirming that would help support you as a mantra, what could be, it's okay to be sad, right? Like allowing yourself to be sad if that's what you're experiencing. So using it to look at and then translate into something that's going to support you going forward. Super helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I know that a journal has been helpful for me. It took a little bit of practice. This has been a couple months ago, but you were the one that told me to keep a journal as I'm working through my own integration process for things, and journaled every day for 1 week. And I was like, what? I'm not good at this. Why is this not working? You're like, you've been doing it for 1 week. You have to just practice and keep going, and it gets easier the more practice you put in. So I'm throwing that out there to any type A people like me that I'm like, why am I not immediately great at this? And why am I not having any revelations? Give it a little bit of time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it is interesting to free flow write like that. A lot of times you come up with things that you didn't even know were there. And just being able to acknowledge things that you're feeling, and that, like you were saying, that it's okay to feel those things.
Yeah.
I think our body wants to be acknowledged. And, this is my personal platform, but I feel we spend so much time wishing that the pain was gone. So we'll do anything that we can to cover that pain up, whether it's pills or shots or sometimes unnecessary surgeries and things like that, to just get the pain to stop. Instead of taking a little bit of time at least to just acknowledge that your body is feeling these things, I think it's a good way to not just improve body awareness, but somehow acknowledging that you're feeling those things creates a better sense of, I want to call it like body love. Like you're appreciating what it's saying. So it's a great tool.
I totally love that and agree about using pain as a gateway to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of development. And it may be the last thing that you want to do when you're in pain is to acknowledge it, And that may be the only thing that your pain wants it to do, is to acknowledge it for being there, speaking to it as a part of you. It's not all of you, it's just a part of you that's experiencing pain, and starting to ask questions like, what are you trying to teach me? Rather than why are you here, right? Like, what is it? What's the gift in this? What are you trying to teach me? What can I be grateful for, even if it's so small, right? Gratitude can be such a game changer in shifting your state. And I would say that would be the last piece of this, is in your journal, when you're rounding out after you're done writing, is to really speak into some gratitude. If you can't think about anything related to your pain, that's okay. What else in your life can you be grateful for? The support of a partner, a sunshiny day, right? Your dog. Like, I can pretty much always be grateful for my dog and the love that he provides me. Yeah. So
Eric and I do gratitude stuff, and that's usually the first thing. I'm like, I'm so thankful for Reggie. Oh yeah, and you too, but mainly Reggie. Oh my gosh.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's so beautiful the way you phrase that, that it's a way to access greater self-love and love and accept all parts of us. Absolutely.
I think it gives you that opportunity as well over time, as your pain is positively progressing, because I truly believe that everyone has that opportunity, that it starts to create curiosity for pain as opposed to panic and fear.
Yes.
I have, even though I have that opportunity to get worked on and do foam rolling, occasionally I have my own bouts of pain. One of them being a knee, that mainly my right knee, that every once in a while gives me pain. And the first time it ever happened, it was so intense, it practically brought me to my knees. And it was another one where I felt at the time, this has been 6 or 7 years ago at this point, that it was random. Like, I'd been running, and then one day, it was in the morning, I think I got out of bed, and it just made me drop. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And as I worked through getting out of that initial pain, I think intuitively I always knew it wasn't my knee. There was something going on with my hips, because that's the way my scientific brain works. But it initially improved greatly, but every once in a while I'll still have it come back, or sometimes it shows up in the other knee. And through this whole process of learning about my body and staying really in tune as much as I can, there's always room for improvement. But whenever my knee, suddenly there's a stabbing pain, or suddenly it hurts out of nowhere, I find that my first reaction is, I wonder what's going on. I wonder if my hips look off right now. I feel that my reaction is no longer, oh my gosh,
Panic.
my meniscus is torn. Like having a full scale panic attack, which again, if you are looking to promote that safety in your body, that's such a great way to, again, like opening the door. It is a transition process, but being able to give your body a little bit of grace and just look at it with some curiosity is such a powerful tool in getting rid of a lot of that fear of pain, which I know we have.
Agree with that wholeheartedly. Yes, awesome. Absolutely.
All right. Are we ready for tip number 3? Last one?
Let's do it. Awesome. So after staying away from Google, starting a journal, the last thing I would say is to pay attention to your language. And we've talked about that and interwove that through all of our tips, because I would say it's actually one of the most important and foundational pieces of all of this. I know you mentioned it as something that you started to work on early on in your journey, mindset, and language is such a big part of that. Is you can shift your mindset when you use words intentionally. And I believe I said it earlier in a different segment, but your language creates your reality. The words you use literally creates the world that you live in. And if that's the first time you're hearing it, it may be like, what are you talking about? But your words are so powerful. They either create something powerful and uplifting, or they create something that brings you down and creates more of a victim mentality. And so there are 3 categories that we like to talk about in training that you and I have both done, called vocabulary. And the 3 different categories are projections, negations, and soft talk. So if you can start identifying these 3 things in your language, you're going to make huge strides. So projections being when you take your power and you give it away to somebody else. You are projecting something happening out of your wheelhouse, not your wheelhouse, but out of your power. So an example of that would be, he's making me crazy, or he's driving me nuts, right? Or a pain specific example would be something like, trying to think of,
This doctor is not diagnosing me right.
Right. Yep. So you're giving away your, thank you, I had a brain fire. Giving away your power by projecting something out onto somebody else. So the second you're, rather than stating from your experience, you're giving it to somebody else, it just loses your power. So instead of saying, he's making me crazy, translating it to, I'm driving myself crazy, right? Like, I'm actually the one that's creating the story about all the things that he's doing to me. And how can I make that more accurate? That's ultimately what we're always trying to do, is create a more accurate picture of our language. So another example I could think of is like, this pain is killing me. So is the pain actually killing you? Most likely not, right? Like, that's a much more dramatic example, but how often do we say things like that, right?
Sure.
And that's creating in our system at the neurological level, is it's creating a story, which is possibly creating more of a pain-induced state in your body. So the second one would be negations. We talked about this actually in our last tip, but as much as possible, framing things in the positive instead of the negative. So rather than saying, I can't do lunges because, let's say, your knee's bothering you, well, what can you do, right? I can do movements on this plane, or I can do squats, right? Like, using it to support you rather than only focusing on the things you can't do. That's going to create a story around all the ways that you're not able-bodied, right? It's going to create all these reasons. I know, Julia, this was a big one for you. Doctors telling you all the things you weren't going to be able to do.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I was in a little flashback of being like, yep, that happened all the time. And that makes you focus. Exactly what you're saying is, like, hey, you can't play sports. You can't, something as simple as typing. My right arm doesn't turn. It only goes about halfway. It doesn't turn all the way over. So I can't type with both hands. I know that was a negation right there, but having somebody just say like, oh, you can't do this because of this, then yeah, your brain gets filled most of the day with all the things you're unable to do instead of focusing on all the things that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. One is way more empowering than the other. Because even if it's true, like, let's say you, like you said, you can't type with one hand, let's focus on what's going to be empowering and uplifting for you. And then the last one is soft talk. And this one is where we soften what it is that we're wanting to say by adding in words that are going to lighten the blow. So, for example, let's say you're wanting your partner to support you with something because you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of pain you're experiencing. And so you look to your partner and you say, maybe you could unload the dishwasher later, right? Because what you really want is for your partner to do the dishes, right? You want them to unload that dishwasher because it's going to make you feel better and it's going to support you because you're not feeling great. So rather than saying maybe, saying exactly what it is that you want, taking out the word maybe because it's softening what you're saying. So, Eric, can you please unload the dishwasher later? I'm really hurting tonight and it would be really helpful for me. Like, noticing how much more powerful that is than maybe you could unload the dishwasher, which is just passive and soft.
Definitely. I know the biggest soft talk issue that I needed to change was using the word try. And
Mm.
now I hear it all the time where, maybe I'm talking, maybe. See, look what's happening right now.
Yeah. When you call attention to it, you can't unsee it.
I know. Now it gets in my head, but I'll be talking to clients and they'll say, oh, I'll try to foam roll this weekend. And I'll have to say, are you going to foam roll or are you not going to foam roll? There's no try. Or,
Yep.
I'll try and put more time into it. That one is a huge one, which again, I'm not giving you all a hard time because that was my biggest soft talk or just language thing that I've been working on for the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Because I said it all the time. And that gives you an out constantly if, again, you're looking to really go for figuring out your pain or whatever the goal that you have in mind, even if it's something as simple as you're getting back into activities or you're starting a new sport, whatever. If you're like, well, I'll try to train for it this weekend, or I'll try to do some exercises that'll help my knee. Totally different in your brain than saying, I'm going to do this thing this weekend.
Yeah. Even the most helpful example when I was doing this work is saying the two sentences side by side and actually feeling how it feels in your body. So like you said, I'm going to try and foam roll, listening and feeling what that feels like. I will foam roll on Saturday. Like, one literally gives me goosebumps. I'm like, that's solid, it's powerful, I know exactly what you're gonna do. And one just feels weak. And there's a reason for that. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's a huge one for changing the story around how you're going to progress or the actions that you're going to take. That's even a great point too, is taking out a lot of the maybes, probablys, tries, gives you a more definitive action step to take. And that is another huge part. If you're going to change your mindset, it takes repetition, it takes action. Language, I'm learning more and more about it. It's such a huge part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can consume all day, but the point at the end of all of this is if you're not taking concrete action steps to take your power back and to actively change your circumstances, then we're most likely just spinning our wheels, right? And so, yeah, I imagine that's a great way to wrap all of this, is taking all of this and taking action on just one thing.
Yes, I think those 3 things that we talked about are all helpful to changing your story. And if you can pick one thing from each category to start with, I think that's great. So you can limit the crazy story that could be happening by just limiting your Google searches or just the time you're spending on it. You can change your story by getting out all of your emotions, journaling, and then picking an affirmation. Those affirmations are super helpful to, again, like flipping what you're feeling into a way that feels supportive of everything that you're going through. And then language, that again, I agree with you, I think is the biggest one for changing the story that you're telling in your head about your pain. And something to practice. It's an ongoing process, but it's been incredible to remove those words whenever I think about it. Or if you live with Eric, he will call you out for it at any point in time. I said that this morning, actually. I was like, I think I'm going to do that this weekend. And he was like, you think? like, I will do that this weekend. Yeah.
I love you.
Great though.
Yeah.
It's great though. If you have somebody like, between a partner or a roommate or a friend, whoever that can help support you with that may be a good action step too, is if you're going to attempt to remove some of these words, get an accountability buddy and have them call you out for your stuff. Sometimes that has to happen, but
absolutely. Yeah.
But anyways, this was awesome. I really enjoyed our time. I hope other people got some good takeaways from this. If you are listening and have some takeaways and want to chat, I'm going to leave a way to contact both myself and Bryn at the bottom of this video, so you can tell us, you know, again, your takeaways or just anything that you want to share. So this was great.
Awesome. Thanks, Julia.
All right, Sunshine. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye.